In this section, you are going to understand how to solve quadratic equations using completing the square method. Here we have an equation and you're required to solve it up to 2 decimal places. Now the first thing you need to do is to ensure that this condition is met, and the condition is that the coefficient of x squared must equal to 1. If it's not equal to 1, you need to divide throughout by the value a. So in this case, what we need to do now is to isolate the x terms. So we need to get rid of the minus 6. So we have x squared and that equals 0. So we need to get rid of the minus 6, okay? So in this case, we need to add 6 both sides. So on the left hand side, we have x squared plus 16x. This would become 0. So on the right hand side, I just have positive 6. Now, the left hand side here, we need to make it into a perfect square. So we need to add half the coefficient of x, all squared. So the coefficient of x here is 16. So half of 16 is 8. All squared we need to add. But we need to add it both sides as well to keep the equation balanced. So by simplifying the right hand side, we would have 6 plus 8 all squared. 8 all squared, that's 64. So 64 add 6 would give us 70. So the right hand side equals 70. On the left hand side, x squared plus 16x plus 8 all squared can be written as x plus 8 all squared. Now one of my students explained to me that all you have to do is to zap the x squared to get x, zap the 8 squared to get 8, and then you put the bracket and just do all squared. What really happens really, if you expand x plus 8 all squared, you would get exactly what is up here. So what we need to do now, we need to solve for x. So we need to take the square root both sides to solve for x. So in this case, we take the square root of the left hand side and also the right hand side. So we have x plus 8 all squared, and on the right hand side here we take the root of 70, so we have positive plus or minus the square root of 70. When you take the square root of x plus 8 all squared, we just get x plus 8. Plus or minus the square root of 70 is 8.37. It's 8.37. So we need to get x now. So if we get rid of the positive 8, then we could get x. So we need to add 8. We need to take 8 both sides. So in this case, I would have x plus 8 there, and I need to take 8 both sides. So minus 8, that would equal to plus or minus 8.37 minus 8. So the left hand side we would just have x, and the right hand side I would have plus or minus 8.37 minus 8. Which can give us two answers. We could have minus 8.37 minus 8, or we could have positive 8.37 minus 8. So in this case, our answers are minus 16.37 or 0.37. Okay, so that's the two decimal places. Now we're going to look at another example. In this case, the coefficient of x squared is not equal to 1, so we would have to make it equal to 1. So let's have a look at that question now. So here we have 4x all squared plus 12x minus 44 equals 0. The coefficient of x all squared is not equal to 1, so we need to make that condition equal to 1. We need to make the condition equal to 1, the coefficient of x all squared. So in this case, we need to divide throughout the equation by 4 for the coefficient of x squared to be 1. So we divide throughout by 4, which gives us x squared plus 3x minus 11 equals 0. Again, we need to isolate the x terms, so if we get rid of the minus 11, so we need to add 11 both sides. So the left hand side would give us just x all squared plus 3x, and on the right hand side we would just have positive 11. This would give us 0. So we need to now add half the coefficient of x all squared. Coefficient of x here is 3, so we add half the coefficient of x here, which is 1.5 all squared. We need to do that both sides to keep the equation balanced. So when we simplify the right hand side, we get 13.25 on the left hand side. X squared plus 3x plus 1.5 squared can be written as x plus 1.5 all squared. If you can't recall how to do this, my student would explain to me that you zap the square root of the square x squared here to get x, and you zap 1.5 all squared to get 1.5 in there. And then what you do is to take the square root both sides. So in this case, we would have the root of x plus 1.5 all squared equals to plus or minus the root of 13.25. When you take the root of x plus 1.5 all squared, we get just x plus 1.5 equals to plus or minus the root of 13. The two decimal places would be just 3.64. We need to get x, so we need to get rid of the minus 1.5, so we need to take 1.5 both sides. So if we take 1.5 both sides, we need 1.5 both sides there as well. So this here would give us 0. So on the left hand side we just have x. On the right hand side we would have plus or minus 3.64 minus 1.5. So we could have minus 3.64 minus 1.5, or 3.64 minus 1.5. So x equals to minus 5.14 or 2.14. So that's the answer to 2 decimal places. Thank you for listening, and I hope you do understand how to solve quadratic equations using completing the square method.